This happened on July 18th, 1988. I was on a river, the South Fork of the Payette River in central Idaho, on a whitewater rafting trip. So we pushed off into the river, and it only took a few minutes before we came to the part where it started getting pretty steep. And there was a large, I would say, automobile-sized boulder jutting up out of the water in the middle, and that we were being drawn toward. The channel to the left was very steep and dangerous, and our the guy who was at the back with on the rudder said, "This is going to be too rough. We probably won't make it. We need to paddle to the right, paddle hard." So he's screaming at us, of course, over this water that we need to paddle to the right. And we're paddling frantically, trying to get around to the right side of this boulder. But what happens is the water brings us right in front of that boulder, and we hit it. And the raft went perpendicular, and the guys fell back, of course, and hit me and knocked me into the water. I was the only one that went in. And even at that moment, as I'm watching my feet, I'm going in backwards. I'm watching my feet follow me into break the surface of the water. I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to own the bragging rights to going down staircase and nothing but a life jacket. So it took about 5 seconds more before I felt the force of that water to know that I was in real trouble because there was very little I could do to control what was happening to me. I was just growing weaker and weaker. And after the last one that I went through, which wasn't, the last staircase, but the last waterfall was probably only three or four that I'd gone over. I was so beat up and so exhausted that I remember after being spit out of this bottom current and trying to get to the surface, I tried to raise my arms and I couldn't do it. I was spent. So I tried kicking my feet to see if I could get my way to the surface, and I couldn't even manage that. And I knew at that point that I was going to die. I knew I wasn't going to make it. It was almost the next moment I felt myself leave my body. It was like it was a whoosh. And all of a sudden, I was somewhere where there's no violence, no pain, no struggle for air, no struggle for anything. It was this sort of amorphous, and I would call it sort of a grayish area. And I said to myself, what the hell just happened to me? And as soon as I said that, I sensed the presence of a being near me. And this being was communicating to me telepathically. And I don't know if that's the right term since we're not in a body, and presumably we don't have a brain. This energy of ours, this spirit or whatever we want to call it, communicated to me telepathically, saying everything is okay. You are okay, and I'm here to take care of you. And he turned and began to move away from me. And my sense of it was that this was a male being and someone who cared about me and that I knew very well. We arrived at this place where I began to view my lifetime from three different aspects. I began to experience it or view the experience of it from my own viewpoint. I viewed it from this omniscient viewpoint, and I viewed it from the viewpoint of everyone with whom I'd ever interacted. Okay. And this was simultaneous. And one of the most profound memories that I remember was early on when I was just a child, like about a 4-year-old kid. And my brother, who was a year younger, came into the house. We lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire at the time where my father was stationed. And he said that the kid next door, who was, I think, 5 years old, had hit him and he came back crying. Well, the kid next door's name was John Arthur. And John Arthur was a friend of mine. Uh, I remember sitting one day, sitting on his chest in the front yard, saying, "Say, Arthur, let's say, car, you can do it." At any rate, John Arthur and I were buddies, but when I went outside and I saw him in his yard, I was going to see what had happened, and I was going to get a little retribution for my brother. And I saw this stick as I then on the lawn, and I grabbed it. And it was probably about a foot and a half, 2 feet long, and maybe bigger around as your thumb. And I ducked around the side of the house and waited for John Arthur to come around. And as he came around the corner, you know, and you could tell he wanted to play, I whacked him over the head with this stick. And he immediately grabbed his head and started screaming and crying. And in this life review, I got to feel what he felt. I felt the blow of the stick. I felt the emotion, the big change is here's my buddy, I'm going to go play with him. And then, wow, he just whacked me hard with this stick. And it went on from there. And what a surprise that was, that I could feel what I had done to others. So we moved on, and I got married pretty early in my life, and my wife and I were not nearly equipped to deal with how difficult uh, getting along and trying to make a living. I was in college, and she had just graduated high school. And the things we did and said to each other were very painful, and I was profoundly ashamed of some of my behavior toward her. And I looked I'm going to say it was to my left. My sense was to my left to see the reaction of this being to the way that I'd behaved, and there was no judgment. Uh, it was all about experience, and that's what I was there for. And all I got instead was this, I'll call it a wave of unconditional love. And as I went through and completed that review of the years I had lived at that point, all I felt was love, this overwhelming love. It's love like I don't think it's possible to experience on this planet. And I began to understand that it was actually the creative power of everything. And that I was actually, my sense was then I began to have all these questions. Why did this have to happen? Why did that have to happen during this life review? And as I asked these questions in my mind, reviewing my life, all the answers would pour into me. And every question that I asked, didn't matter what it was answered fully and completely and satisfactorily. And I knew that where I was, and where we all are actually, was existing within the consciousness of what I will call God. And this God is this absolutely non-judgmental, loving being. And in our Western Christian concepts, we view God as this old man who lives in heaven somewhere way up in the sky, somewhere above us. And that's a pretty good concept for somebody trying to understand God, I guess. And I think that may be why he is often referred to as our Father. my experience was we're not apart from God. We're actually a part of God. That we're these amazing, loving beings who, as we come down to embody, and we choose to do that to gain experience, we forget that. Because what would be the point if we had all the answers coming down here? It's about experience and learning and evolving. So I'm feeling amazingly great. It's like everything, I'm having a great time getting all of my questions answered. And I want to stay there. There was a sense that there was no such thing as there as right and wrong, but just cause and effect. That we're just sort of here on the stage getting our experiences. Over there, there's no judgment. The only judgment that comes is the assessment of our own lives and what we want to perhaps avoid the next time, which then brought up the aspect of reincarnation, that we're not here just once, that we're here to experience over and over and over again to get that evolution. So all this was happening, and it seemed like it was going on for a long time, for a period of time. But then I was told, um, it's time for you to decide. You can either stay or you can go. The decision is yours. If you stay, however, you have you have these agreements, contracts, if you will, with others that you embodied with at this time that you wanted to fulfill. And if you choose to stay, of course, those the remainder of those won't be fulfilled, and you're going to want to reestablish those agreements in a future lifetime. And I thought, oh man, I don't want to go back, but I don't want to have to. To me, it was like repeating a grade in school. So I said, okay. Reluctantly, I said, I'll go back. And the moment I said that, I was back in my body. And I'm through staircase now. I'm at the bottom of it. I'm floating just underneath the water. There is some consciousness that I'm there. In fact, I can even see my body. So I'm not sure I'm even in my body yet. But I see the guy in the kayak. His name is Breck. He's in his kayak and he's down there searching for me. The guys in the rafter downstream, maybe 60, 70 yards. And they found a place to beach, and they're all looking for me. And Breck sees me come, my orange life jacket, come down through the water, and he grabs me and he pulls me to the surface and starts yelling at me, like, uh, "Start breathing, breathe, grab the rope loop on my kayak, I'll get you out of here." And I can hear him screaming this, and it's like I remember trying to move to do this, but I couldn't make myself move for a moment or two until I'm coming around and I'm trying to grab up. It was like I would get my hand on that rope loop, but I couldn't seem to hold on to it. But eventually, between him grabbing my life jacket and trying to get to trying to paddle to the side, and me holding on at least momentarily to this rope loop, we got to the uh, over by the raft, and there was kind of a sandy bar there. And they pulled me up onto that bar and elevated my feet and assessed that I was in shock and hypothermic and semi-conscious. Uh, Apparently, I hadn't aspirated any or much of any water, which was good. But they covered me with what they had, which was life jackets, and I think they had a little tarp or something, and tried to keep me warm. And it was sunny, so that was and warm, and so that was helpful. And didn't have any cell phones back then, so the only choice we had at that point was they put me back in the bottom of the raft, lying down, and we had probably another couple hours to go where I rode down. I remember how painful it was because I was pretty gashed up and bruised on my backside, so laying down was not the most comfortable position. But I was conscious and I was alive and I could feel pain, so uh, I was probably going to make it. Well, I just want to reiterate that you and everyone out there are loved profoundly, that you are a spiritual being here to have experiences you wanted to come here and embody. You've probably done it many more times than you can recall. You're probably going to do it again and again. Um, and it's all about gaining experiences and growing as beings. And I'm not sure where this all heads, but your your essence, your your energy is divine. Let it guide you that way. Uh, I want to say, we all think that we live in perilous times. There's probably all times are probably considered perilous. Let the better angels of your nature guide you. They will guide you. Um, and God bless you all.